Hey guys, tonight, we're diving face first into the mud-caked, soot-stained world of medieval daily life, a place where brushing your teeth meant chewing a stick and your alarm clock was the town drunk yelling at roosters. You're not here to slay dragons or dine in castles. No, tonight you're waking up as a perfectly ordinary peasant in the 1300s, and spoiler alert, you probably wouldn't last until lunch. The air smells like old hay smoke and something vaguely fishy. Not fish exactly, just the idea of fish. You're on a straw mattress, stuffed with more bugs than stuffing, and the mattress is directly on the floor. No frame, no pillow. If you're lucky, there's a thin wool blanket. If you're really lucky, it doesn't smell like goat. Your first sensation is an itch, probably lice, maybe fleas. You're not alarmed. This is just how mornings begin here. You shift under the blanket only to realize the blanket is damp in one corner. That's also normal. The roof leaks when it rains. And it always rains. Chamber pots line the wall. None are empty. You try not to breathe too deeply. A rooster screams outside, but the church bell beats him to it. 5 rings. Dawn. You groan and sit up, scratching your neck with a fingernail that might still have soot from last night's fire tending. Your back cracks. You're 24 but feel ancient. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your city and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle to the doorway, which is more a wooden flap than an actual door. Outside, the village is stirring. Smoke curls from crooked chimneys. Children run barefoot, chasing each other around a cow that's just pooped in the street. Again, you stretch. Your tunic smells like sweat and boiled onions because you wore it yesterday and the day before. You have one other tunic, but it has a hole in the back and your cousin's name stitched into it because it used to be hers. Bathing not today. Not this week. Maybe not this season. Bathing is reserved for saints and nobles, or once a year if there's a festival. And even then, someone has to heat the water, and you'd better bring your own soap, which is just ash and pig fat molded into sadness. You toss on your wool cap, not because it's cold, but because you haven't washed your hair in. You're not even sure anymore. As you stumble down the steps, a pig races past. No one chases it. That pig belongs to someone, but pigs are kind of communal here. You feed it if it wanders into your yard, and later you'll all share a piece of it. Probably. If it doesn't die of something mysterious first. The path through the village is just packed earth full of ruts and puddles. Children squat near the edge of the communal well, daring each other to drink before the sun rises. Your neighbor, who lost half his teeth in a scuffle over garlic last year, waves and belches simultaneously. That's basically a greeting. Historians still argue whether medieval villagers genuinely accepted this level of discomfort or simply didn't know anything else. Either way, it's clear they were far more tolerant of grime pain and low-grade chaos than we are today. Your mattress might be crawling, your nose might be half cauterized from the smell, but you're awake. And you have a full day of mild to moderate suffering ahead. Back in the cottage, someone coughs a deep, wet rattle that echoes off the low beams. You hope it's not plague, but also, what would you do if it was pray spit in a river, wrap garlic around your ankles and call it a cure? You step outside into the thin morning light and think, this isn't so bad. And you're right for now. Just wait until you have to eat. You wander toward the hearth stomach, grumbling, already preparing yourself for a breakfast that can only be described as low expectations met. There's no scent of coffee, no wafting cinnamon roll dreams, no buttery toast. There's a stale, sour tang in the air, like someone left a loaf of bread to die in a barn, and that's your main course. Your cousin is already awake, crouched beside the fire, stirring something gray and steaming in a cracked pot. You ask what it is. She shrugs. Ale porridge. That's not a joke, that's breakfast. You reach for a wooden bowl, not your bowl, just a bowl. They're kind of communal, and scoop some of the slop inside. It's lukewarm. It jiggles. A thin drizzle of sour ale has separated from the gruel and floats on top like a sad glaze. No one speaks while eating, partly because they're focused on chewing, partly because there's no energy left in anyone's vocal cords after decades of boiled food. The bread is from yesterday, maybe the day before. It's dense brick-like and slightly moldy. You scrape off the green bits with your thumbnail and dip it into the porridge. It softens. A bit. You chew slowly, jaw working hard. It's filling in the way damp socks are warming just barely. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants were nutritionally deprived or surprisingly well-fed by their standards. Sure, you had access to grains and vegetables, but there were seasons of scarcity, long winters, failed crops, and of course the occasional famine. Meat rare, eggs even rarer. Cheese, only if your goat was in a good mood that week. You look around and spot your neighbor gnawing on an onion like it's an apple. He makes eye contact and nods solemnly as if to say, "Yes, this is my life." And here's the kicker: most peasants didn't even eat first thing in the morning. They worked before breakfast. You're part of the lucky few today. Maybe someone died and left a few root vegetables in their will. Who knows? Your younger cousin whines that the porridge is cold. Your aunt smacks the table with a wooden spoon. "Then eat it faster," she says. "There's no sugar here, no butter, no jam." Fruit, when available, is more like a seasonal miracle. Maybe once a year, someone will pickle plums or stew berries into a sauce. But this morning, you get boiled oats, and not the creamy kind. You tilt your bowl to drink the last of the ale-slicked mush and nearly gag. It's fermented warm and slightly bitter, like a beer that lost a bet. Still, calories are calories. Outside, a rooster screams again. Possibly the same one from earlier. You quietly consider whether anyone would notice if he suddenly became stew. But you're not allowed to eat the village's animals without permission. That's a whole trial. Stalks public shaming, maybe even having to walk through the square with a sign around your neck that says "cock thief." You finish your bowl, wipe it on your sleeve, and hand it back to your cousin, who licks the rim for good measure. Someone offers you a handful of dried peas. You decline politely. Your stomach already feels like a laundry bag of rocks. Instead, you step outside and breathe in the morning air. It smells like burnt wood manure and the unmistakable funk of an open trench used as a toilet. You sigh deeply and try not to inhale too much. Your teeth ache from grinding all night. Your back is tight from sleeping on straw, and you realize that the only way to survive the day is to survive breakfast first. And you did. Barely. Now the real work begins. You shuffle toward the edge of the house, clutching your stomach in quiet protest. Breakfast didn't kill you, but now there's another problem. A pressing one. Nature calls, and it's not leaving a voicemail. In a modern life, you'd march toward a tile-floored bathroom with a scented candle and flush options. Here, not quite. You duck around the side of the cottage past the firewood pile where a narrow path leads to the privy, a generous word for what is essentially a wooden box with a hole in it. A cold breeze greets you, encouraging. You unlatch the rough-hewn door and step inside. The structure leans slightly to one side, creaking gently. You sit, or rather hover and brace. The seat is a plank with a hole, and the smell, well, you won't need your nose again today. Consider it retired. No toilet paper here. Just a small pile of rags, a rough sponge, or if you're unlucky, a pine cone. You pray it's not pine cone day. You glance up. There's no roof, just beams and open sky. Good for ventilation, Bad if it rains. You don't linger. The flies don't either. Outside, someone coughs loudly. There's zero privacy. You realize that in many medieval homes, people didn't even walk outside. They used a bucket indoors, or a chamber pot tucked under the bed, sometimes emptied, sometimes forgotten. Welcome to Sanitation Medieval Edition. Historians still argue whether privies in villages were communal or privately maintained by households. There's evidence of both. Some towns had shared facilities, trench-style latrines drained by streams. Others just hoped gravity and time would handle the problem. In castles, the situation was slightly more refined. A hole in the wall dropped waste into a moat, which means if you were invading a castle and decided to swim the moat, you deserved whatever you got. Back in your reality, you try to clean up without touching anything. The flush is a bucket of old water. You pour it, and it splashes. On your shoes. Because of course it does. You emerge blinking into the light. The air doesn't smell better, but at least it moves. You spot the neighbor's teenage son digging a new pit nearby. You wave. He shrugs. "Old one's full again," he says. "Just a regular Tuesday." A pig snuffles past and noses the dirt. You shoo it away. It's unclear whether it's helping or hindering. And that's the thing. Waste wasn't just a health hazard. It was everywhere. In streets, in rivers, in alleys. Chamber pots were dumped out of windows. With luck, people yelled a warning, "Gardez-le, yes." That's a real thing and a likely origin of loo. Without luck, you got a surprise rinse. Imagine walking home from market and catching a bucket of fermented urine to the head. That's why people wore hoods and wide-brimmed hats. Medieval fashion, it's not just for style. It's armor. You wander into the village center, where a row of houses leans together like gossiping elders. A dog lifts its leg on the cartwheel. A child squats by the side of the road. You pretend not to see it. Even religious spaces weren't exempt. Monasteries had elaborate waste channels carved from stone, but they were rarely cleaned. Imagine walking barefoot through a cloister garden, not knowing which puddle is rain and which is not. And medical knowledge. Let's just say if someone examined your urine, it wasn't to check hydration. It was to divine your future. Cloudy, with a hint of death. You reach the edge of a low stone wall, sit, and try to think clean thoughts. But a breeze carries something unidentifiable. Sweet. Sour. Alive. Still, this was normal. People adapted. Noses dulled. Standards adjusted. You weren't meant to be fragrant, just functional. A cat licks itself nearby. A bucket tips. A chicken hops up beside you and promptly relieves itself. You sigh. Welcome to medieval cleanliness. You rise from your perch beside the wall stretch and glance back toward your home, which, let's be honest, is more wooden shed with aspirations than house. It's time to get dressed for the day, if you can call what you're about to do getting dressed. There are no closets here. No drawers. Just a wooden peg in the wall, and hanging from it is your only other outfit, a slightly less stained tunic that smells like mildew and goat. You strip off your night clothes, which, let's face it, are the same as your day clothes, and tug on the tunic. It's wool because everything is wool. Scratchy, itchy, warm, even when you don't want it to be. You pull it over your head, wrestle your arms through the sleeves, and hope there aren't any spiders still living inside from the last time you wore it. Underwear. That's not a thing. Not unless you're a noble. Even then, it's just a linen shift. You are in every practical sense going commando. You wrap a belt around your waist, not for style, but to keep the tunic from flapping like a potato sack in the wind. Your shoes are leather-cracked stiff and held together with string. They were once your uncle's, then your cousin's, now yours. They don't fit. But your feet are numb from standing in cold mud, so you don't notice. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants cared much about fashion, but there's evidence of decorative stitching, dyed wools, and even occasional jewelry made from bones or shells. People took pride where they could, but you're mostly aiming to not freeze. You grab your hat, an old coif, really tied under your chin, and step back outside. The wind smacks you in the face, and the hat lifts slightly, like it's considering abandoning ship. Your neighbor, wearing nearly identical clothing, nods. He's added a second tunic today. The air is damp and rain's coming. You can smell it. Further up the road, you see the miller's wife in a saffron-colored apron, surprisingly bright against the gray village. You wonder how she got that dye. Probably onion skin. Or magic. You're leaning toward magic. One child runs past with no shoes at all, his tunic hitched up so high it barely qualifies as coverage. He waves a stick and declares himself king of the dirt. You wave back. Long may he reign. You pass a small mirror, a polished metal disc hanging in someone's doorway. You glance at your reflection. Hair flattened and wild at once. Eyes red from smoke and lack of sleep. Expression equal parts confusion and resignation. You look exactly how you feel, like someone trying not to think about lice. And oh, the lice. You've been itching all morning. You know they're there. Everyone has them, noble or peasant. They're not picky. You've tried vinegar, old garlic paste, even ash. Nothing works. You once saw someone shave their head to be free of them. 2 days later, the lice were back. Somehow smugger. You consider the soap bar tucked under your bed, gray, lumpy, and made with leftover tallow and lye. It smells like regret. You used it once last winter, and it made your skin sting for days. Instead, you grab your outer cloak wool again and fasten it with a bone pin. You're layered, armored in itches, and ready for whatever mild suffering the day has in store. You glance up, clouds rolling in. Again, even fashion isn't safe from the elements. But hey, at least you're dressed. Sort of. You step into the path that winds through the village, trying not to trip on loose cobbles or step into one of the many suspicious puddles that seem to multiply like rabbits after a good rain. Your boots squish. A sliver of straw pokes through the seam and stabs your heel, but it's fine. You've already accepted that minor pain is part of the daily ensemble. The village is fully awake now. Smoke curls from thatch-roofed cottages, mingling with the low chatter of neighbors exchanging updates about weather berths, chickens, and the new rumor that someone in the next village over saw a fish with 2 heads. You nod politely at a woman swinging a bucket of turnips and sidestep a goat nibbling the edge of someone's woven door. It's time to get to work. You're no lord, no knight, no scribe. You are a laborer, a villain, a peasant tethered to the land, like the vines on the trellis behind the baker's house. You don't own your land. You borrow it, work it, owe a chunk of everything it yields to the Lord, who technically owns you, or at least acts like he does. Your destination today, the wheat field, or possibly the flax patch, or maybe the sheep pasture. Your tasks rotate. Not for fun, but for survival. Monotony is the rhythm of the rural medieval life. There's no tick-tock break, just ticks and talks, and someone coughing up something alarming in the distance. You grab your tools, an iron hoe, a dull scythe, and a wooden rake that seems more philosophical than functional. Your hands are already calloused, your nails permanently etched with dirt that will outlast kingdoms. Historians still argue whether peasants worked from sunrise to sunset or had frequent holidays and rest periods. The truth probably lies somewhere in between. Yes, there were holy days, sometimes dozens of them. But when you're working 6 days a week from your early teens to your early grave, a few scattered feast days don't feel especially restful. You walk alongside a man carrying a sack of barley over his shoulder. He's humming. It's not a happy tune, just a tune. Music helps the work go down like spoonfuls of dirt-flavored sugar. Fields stretch out ahead of you, golden or green, depending on the season, dotted with birds pecking for seeds, and old scarecrows slumping like retired monks. You pass a fallow patch, overgrown and muddy, where pigs are rooting through the soil for anything edible. One of them snorts at you like it's judging your fashion sense. You snort back. Reaching your plot, you kneel, press your weight into the tool, and begin to dig. The soil is thick and clumpy. Every motion jars your shoulder. But this is what feeds you barely. Every mouthful of bread was earned 100 times over. This is farming with no tractor, no gloves, no lunch break. And yet, there's something meditative here. The repetitive swing of the hoe, the rhythm of birds overhead, the quiet swish of breeze through the barley. You let yourself